driving. Hope comes and stops us in our tracks. Bravely we prove in our striving, trudging together each day. Where there's a will, there's a way.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to Raw Recovery with Dion Miller, a Trudging Together event. As you know, everybody is inside nowadays with the COVID going on, but I didn't want the podcasting to stop, because hearing people's stories, especially right now, I think is very important. So the audio may be a little bit different for you guys. You might hear different things. I'm having to utilize Zoom. And thankfully, I have a lot of friends in this field that are willing to come on and talk with us. And today, one of my newer friends and a fellow worker is with us. Hi, Raquel. How are you today?
I'm great, Dion. How are you today?
I think I'm probably doing better than most people. I'm used to being inside. So, kind of taking, doing things my way. So I've kind of, of course, with God's direction, but thank you very much for coming on. And what are some of the things that you're doing right now that are helping you with being home during this crisis? I know that you do a lot of stuff outside the house. So, and you're a mother, and, so you're kind of going through several things. What are you doing?
Thanks for having me. This is my favorite place to be. I'm blessed to coach all kinds of things, but recovery is my heart, because it was the beginning of my start at 32 years old. And, right now, one thing recovery's taught me is to find some sort of rhythm to my life, right? When I first got sober, it was, 90 meetings in 90 days, to some sort of simple plan. And now I've taken that same idea and I still work some sort of a plan, even with my kids at home, because I do have 5 children home and I have to balance that in a job. That same rhythm at the foundation of my recovery benefits me today by creating a foundation and a rhythm for my own family and the way we work at home.
Absolutely. And I talk about creating our foundation a lot. Especially in the steps 1, 2, and 3, and creating a very solid foundation. And I think those that really succeed and go beyond practice steps 1, 2, and 3 every single day. That way, when we have a harder day with something, we have something we can fall back on, something we can rely on. And that's very
I'm grateful in my recovery. It's been great because, there's that part in the beginning where it talks about being fearless and thorough from the very start. That has probably been my number one drive. And I continue to use that small little principle in my life, right? Fearless and thorough from the very start. And one thing I didn't like was order. I didn't like a rhythm. I didn't like people constructing or telling me what to do. But what I was disobedient, now obedience has become the best thing in my life.
Don't bring up the word structure to me, or you'll just watch my PTSD go off bringing up that word.
Right.
Yeah, we have to do that, and in order, especially in your situation, you're dealing with your kids also. Thankfully, all mine are gone. My wife doesn't agree with that, but thankfully, all mine are gone. And we need to be consistent for them too, and the people around us, and be examples around that. So, well, let's get started with your story. Wherever you want to start, whatever you feel like sharing. And I'm sure I'll pop up with questions here and there. I'm curious to hear it. I haven't heard it yet, so I'm looking forward to this.
Well, my story, experience, strength, and hope. So, grew up, I'm a native to Colorado, grew up here all my life, and grew up in the Southeast Aurora area. And mom and dad married, still are. My dad drank a little heavier than most. started noticing about in 6th grade, noticing that. And then, I unfortunately, I think I was okay until about time I was 16 years old. And at 16 years old, my friends were murdered in the Chuck E. Cheese murders. So
Oh,
I lost,
I
right?
remember that too. I was working at the
Yeah.
Skippers next door.
Were you? I was 1983. I was 16 years old.
Hmm.
And I heard about the gunshots happening on the TV. And I remember driving 90 miles an hour down Iliff Avenue to get to
Yeah.
my friends who were working there that night.
Hmm.
And I got there and realized that Colleen O'Connor and Ben Grant had murdered. And after that, life just looked very different. There was life
Yeah.
before the murders, and there was life after the murders.
Yeah.
And life after the murders, I dealt with by staying busy in my mind. I definitely started partying more.
Yeah.
And I lived 2 different lives. I was senior class president and varsity soccer player,
Uh-huh.
but I didn't know how to deal with grief. I didn't know
Okay.
how to deal with loss at all. It
Sure.
was so foreign to me. So at 16 years old, I started drinking and using, and it was probably alcohol that got me first.
Yeah.
I didn't really probably smoking pot and the rest of that till afterward. But
Sure.
drinking was my one.
Hmm.
I had a good example. My dad was a good drinker, and I was off to the races. And at 16 years old, I didn't know what else to do. At 16, my friends were murdered. I lost my soccer career from
Hmm.
a knee injury, and then I was sexually assaulted at 16.
Wow.
All of that within a year, and
Yeah.
I saw everyone in my life they used. Like when they're
Hmm.
stressed out, you pick up.
Hmm. And that's how we deal with our
Naturally,
problems.
that's
Yeah.
right. I mean, I don't. And the interesting thing to me is I watch somewhat normal people do the same thing, right? You're
Hmm.
stressed out, you pick up a drink,
Sure.
but I got that allergy part, and so I was off to the races. I ended up barely making it out of high school, and then at 19 years old, I got married.
Okay.
Ugh,
Wow.
yeah, believe it or not, I'm still married to the same guy.
Good for you. Congratulations.
Thank you,
A lot
thank
of
you.
marriages don't
That's a
make
mir.
Yeah, a lot of marriages don't make it through the alcoholic sobering up.
Oh no, and I got a story for you because, yeah, we stayed married through the whole time. So got married at 19 years. I thought life was pretty good. I think I was normally kind of drinking, I guess, from what I knew. It's going out on Saturdays, and I had a decent job.
Hmm.
Got married, and then I turned 21.
Uh,
Woo! Life changed.
yeah.
I could freely go into bars and things that I'd never been able to do before.
Uh-huh.
And then I was off to the races. And it wasn't a hard progression. I mean, it was slow progression. Careers, and I had my job, and I kept my husband, and had my first son at 25. Was
Mm.
able to stay sober during pregnancies,
Sure.
but every time I'd like stop being pregnant and then I'd start again, it would just get a little worse.
Okay.
And then I continued drinking pretty heavily. My husband and I had a business in Aurora. Cocaine came into the picture, and we lost everything we had in Aurora. Lost everything. Lost my home. Lost my marriage at that point was filed for divorce.
Sure.
Had 3 kids at the time that I was going to take from my husband and everything, and had tried sobriety. I did. I really tried, kinda. Well, I don't know if I really tried.
Right,
I think
kinda.
the honest truth is that yeah, I'm like, I always say that, and then I have to backtrack because I'm thinking, did I try? I think I showed up for meetings for a
Sure.
while in Aurora.
Okay.
I picked a sponsor that was pretty easy,
Sure.
because I know I'm a great con man.
Hmm.
So I picked the best one I could con in the room,
Yep.
which inevitably ended me up drunk again.
Sure did. Hmm.
And I tried that. At this time I have 3 kids, I'm married, and then I fled, right? The normal, like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna run from my disease.
Hmm.
So I ran.
Yeah.
And I ran from Aurora down to where I live now in Palmer Lake in Larkspur, Colorado.
Okay.
Because I thought if I got away from Aurora, then I would stop.
Yeah.
But Yeah, but the problem is I took me with me.
Yeah. And they sell
Right.
cocaine in Larkspur too.
Yeah, and there's a liquor store in Monument, and O'Malley's is down the street,
Yeah.
and it, like, and especially if you're a biker, right? We all know O'Malley's
Oh
Pub on
yeah.
105. So, like, that's what I did. I lived 2 blocks behind that sucker.
Mm-hmm.
So I really thought I was going to be able to stay sober. I lasted in Palmer Lake about 6 days
Okay.
sober, and I relapsed and was off to the races for another year and a half.
Yeah.
Um, I did have 3 kids. I want to talk to mamas out there, because on the surface, I didn't look like an alcoholic. I had a
Mm-hmm.
career. I had 3 kids who were dressed well and went to school every day.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I had realized that I had a pattern of always running from my problems, but on the surface, people wouldn't know it was that bad. They
Yeah.
wouldn't know.
They would probably have to get to know you in order to actually figure that out. And so you were a pretty a pretty high maintenance drinker and drugger then.
Right, and I could split it, right? It was almost like 2 lives. Like, when I
Yeah.
went to work, I put on one persona, and then when I went home, I partied like a freaking rock star.
Yeah.
Um, and then for some reason, I was able to balance that until you can't.
Yeah. Until you can.
Until you can't. And I see it a lot even right now. And I was 32 years old. I had 3 kids. And I met this wonderful young lady in Palmer Lake. Her name was Shauna Miller.
Mm-hmm.
She had 2 kids, the exact same age as my 2 my 2 younger kids, same gender, and it was beautiful, right? It was perfect. She was an addict who was in recovery at the time. She was not using meth. Um, and we met and we got along really good,
Mm-hmm.
but we both liked to drink. And she did drink. She was sober off of meth,
Okay.
but she started drinking.
Okay.
And on October 18th of 2009, I had back and brain surgeries during this time that left me not only was an addict and alcohol, but I was addicted to opiates.
Okay.
I was cutting them and snorting them, large amounts of opiates, and backing that with Jack Daniels
Yeah.
because I'm a freaking idiot.
Wow. You're lucky to be
Right. I
alive.
mean, Dion, amen, because literally I should be dead.
You should be.
One night, she came over and she said, I begged her. I remember this night very well. And I begged, I said, please come over. And we'd been drinking and having a good time. She was at her house and I was at mom on the phone. And I begged her to come over. And she arrives at my house. And then I asked her, I had some meds out and I offered her a line. And she took one, I took one, and went for about an hour. And the next thing I know, I look over and she has stopped breathing.
Mm-hmm.
She started to nod off, I remember, and I said, it's time for you to go to bed, girl. She said, no, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep going. And then she went back, and I vividly remember knowing in that moment that she wasn't present.
Yep.
And she stopped breathing.
Mm-hmm.
And panic, I called 911, and the people in the house told me not to because I could be in trouble. And I honestly think that there was a power greater than me in that moment that didn't care.
Absolutely.
And I called 911, and I attempted mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. And she didn't make it.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
So after that, they put me in a psych facility naturally, right? Because I'm losing my mind.
Yeah.
That they told me they tried to, yeah. They said she doesn't make it. And I don't remember all the words that I said, but enough that they thought that I should be put away for a while. So they wrapped me up, stuck me in an ambulance, and shipped me off to a psych facility for 5 days. And I swore, Dion, I meant it too, when I said I was never going to drink again.
Yep.
And I swore it that day. I'd have put my hand on a Bible for you. I mean, I swore until Friday when I went to her funeral and they let me out. And I didn't what to do in that moment after we said goodbye to her other than pick up a drink, because I had no other tools in my box. None.
Absolutely. And that wasn't your fault. And we know this
No,
now. We know this now that our drinking like this is not our fault. It is beyond our control. And that's what's so sneaky about it's what's so sneaky about John Barleycorn. You know,
yeah,
but it sometimes it seems like it's the only relief, and it's when it's the only tool you have, it becomes a nightmare.
it does. And like I said, tell everybody it works till it doesn't, right? Again, that's
Yeah.
my favorite. It works till it doesn't.
Yeah.
And I got out 5 days after she died. I went to her funeral, I drank, and then I don't remember Thanksgiving that year.
Mm-hmm.
I vaguely remember some community people who were kind enough to give toys to my children and make sure we had Christmas, but I do not remember Christmas that year because I stayed so intoxicated
Mm-hmm.
in order to deal with the fact that she was gone, because I didn't know what else to do.
Yep.
She left behind her 2 children. Her mother was devastated, her sister. It was really hard. And I couldn't look at them again. And so staying numb was easier than the reality of what had happened.
Dying was easy.
Oh my gosh, Dion, I wanted to.
Yeah. I
was just too chicken shit,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Yeah.
I was too much of a chicken shit.
Mm-hmm. Even though we were committing suicide on the installment plan anyway.
Aim, right.
We were
So
doing
true.
it. We were just doing it the wussy way.
Yep. I agree.
So,
And taking everybody out, because it's not only that I'm going to take me out, but I'm going to destroy everything around me in its path.
Yeah. There's they talk about in the big book that we go to sordid places, and then there are some of us that are the sordid places, like me. I was the person where if I wanted to drink and I wanted company, I'm going to talk you into it.
Yeah, me too.
So what happened?
It's like I tell people I was a hustler, and then I used to hustle bad, right? I used to be the best salesman. We are amazing, brilliant human beings, alcoholics. We just use this beautiful power to destroy ourselves and other people.
Exactly.
Which is preaching. But after she died, I don't remember Thanksgiving. I don't remember Christmas. And then January 19th of 2010, I had a bad night with a friend. Well, actually a fun night, too big a fun night. She had come to my house. We were drinking heavily. And I remember driving all the way from Palmer Lake to Aurora. It's about 60 miles from where I'm at, to go take her home. And I drove to her house. My mother had just had a double mastectomy. And I remember going to my friend's house. And I remember going there and saying, I'm just going to have 1 or 2 shots so I could feel better, because I started to shake from the night before. And so I said, I just want 1 or 2.
Yeah.
And I opened up the freezer door. I remember opening it up, and I remember the frost on the outside of that thing. And I remember just, swear to God, again, 1 more time, I'm only going to do 1. Until 1 turned into 4. Turned into, I don't know how I'm going to drive my freaking kids home now.
Yep.
I'm wasted. I'm 60 miles from home. And I had my 3 kids in a minivan, and it crossed my mind to drive them home. And my girlfriend says, if you do not go home, Raquel, your husband will leave you. And it crossed my mind to get in that car and drive them home, intoxicated. But God came in.
Good.
And I had literally a flick clarity.
Yeah.
And I said, she actually, at this moment, she had handed me some pills and said, if you take these, it'll sober you up. So now I'm high on pills and on vodka. This is the best thing addicts can do, right? Let's just try to numb more, come up with some freaking chemical concoction to get us back to normal.
Mm-hmm.
What? I mean, that's just insanity.
It is.
That is insanity now that I'm saying that out loud. Who the hell thinks that's a great idea? Again, right? That's what we got. And so I had a moment of clarity, and I said, that's it. I looked at my girlfriend and I said, thanks for the pills. You probably gave me enough to get sober to drive them to my mom's house. My mom lived 4 miles away.
Yeah.
So I actually, unfortunately, intoxicated, drove my children 4 miles away instead of 60. Mm-hmm. My mom, who had a double mastectomy and is still drains all over her, I showed up at her door and I said, I'm done. I want rehab. and I threw my kid and myself at the doorstep of my parents. And the next day I went to Parker Valley Hope. And
Hmm.
by the grace of God, I have 10 years sober today.
That is so awesome. Yeah. 10 years on January 17th, right?
January 19th, I got
19th.
10.
I should know that. That's my wife's birthday.
Yeah, it's my greatest accomplishment.
That's phenomenal, man. I I really like the fact that because all alcohol, but when we come into recovery, there's the step before the steps and the psychic change. And you literally had a spiritual experience that brought you to the rooms. An
Oh,
actual,
yeah.
and a lot of people don't get that. They might have like an epiphany or something else might happen, but God reached down and blessed you on that.
Yeah, there was this moment because I was literally in a drunk fog. And so it's like, I know now it was God. I didn't know then. I just
Sure.
remember a window of clarity that
Yeah.
made me switch from, I could keep going down this path. And then it's been a blessing ever since. I can't imagine my life without it, and at the time I had 3 kids. Now I have 4.
Mm-hmm.
And by the grace of God, I've gotten to foster 3 more kids. So I've had
Wow.
7. And that's all based on 12 steps.
Mm-hmm.
I am a mom whose husband, who was also an addict. My husband stayed actively using for
Mm-hmm.
8 years into my sobriety. So for 10 years, for 8 years I was sober, my husband actively drank.
Wow.
And thank God for AA and Al-Anon. Like,
Oh,
I don't know
man.
what I would have done,
Mm-hmm.
because that was the sanity. But I was able to raise 3 children who
Mm-hmm.
function well, even though I was sober and
Yeah.
dad was wasted.
Mm-hmm.
They actually do not think it was overly, it may show up later in their lives, but they don't think it was very, it didn't take so much out of them. But that's because I've taught them 12 steps. I didn't even know how to be a mom.
Mm-hmm.
My kids are 12-step raised.
Yeah.
That's what I tell people.
My mom made me go to AA when I was 15, and she was newly
Mhm.
sober. And out of all the kids, I was the only one that had to go, but for good reason. You know, um,
Yeah.
the signs were already there, and I am so grateful that she did that. At the time, I wasn't. I was pretty ticked off. But
Sure.
I was grateful that she did that because when I was ready, I knew what to do. I knew where to go. I knew who to talk to. It also made me stay away from a lot of a lot of really, hard drugs like cocaine and stuff
Right.
like that. Not saying I never dabbled, but I could see the signs that, when your friends show up on Wednesday night saying, "Hey, it's party time." No, it's over with, guys. And I actually
Right.
kicked him out of my house, never saw him again.
Yeah.
Because I knew what would
Mean,
happen to me.
well, in 12 steps, like, it was 12 steps. I got sober and did that. And I got pregnant with my 4th kid right out of rehab. And
Wow.
I remember people being in shock that I was going to 12-step meetings pregnant, because they're like, well, surely you're not drinking now. And I said, well, if you don't, I'll pick up when this baby comes out. You crazy?
Yeah.
Because I
Yeah.
will probably, or if I won't justify the glass of wine while I am pregnant.
Yeah.
I know it happens to normal people. So I um I fearless and thorough part. And then, you and I were talking before about that anonymity portion, and I do know that people have to have it, but for me, I just needed to let go of it. I needed to just be out in the open, no anonymity,
Yeah.
addict alcoholic. And then what I did with that was went and got myself a college degree as an addiction counselor, because it was like a profession. I was like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, being an alcoholic it's a hiring point
Yeah.
in recovery.
And well, it is, and it's very important because we can help when other people can't. Um,
Right.
we have knowledge, and so when people are like, "Why am I an alcoholic?" Because God gave you a gift. That's why He gave you the gift
Yes.
to save other people. And if you don't want it, then then that sucks. Because and I agree. The anonymity is important for a lot of people, and for good
Yes.
reason. And we
Yes.
know that, but there has to be voices. There has to be people, we have to have discussions. We have to have discussion about harder things, you know.
Yeah.
Um, I get on with another lady named Sarah, and we come on, we talk about mental health and just the harder things in AA that we don't necessarily deal with. Um, and
Well, and for me,
lot of
I remember AA. I did some step stuff. I was what kind of got me even to the coaching side of things was just that we can get into the self-deprecating. I am very well aware of my character defects.
sure.
That was not hard for me to get.
Yeah.
I think it was trying to find out that I was worthy was the hard part. Like I get that I
Yeah.
had the malady. I know I'd screwed up. I knew all of that. I didn't know now. It was kind of like now what?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean,
Now
that's
what?
okay. I mean, and it kind of depends on where you come from, things you go through too. Also, I'm gonna say my sponsor was very thorough about my first step. Fourth step. He made sure of that. Um, and I knew that it was going to come down to that it was my problem. But I was the opposite also. It was harder for me to learn how to love myself than for me to forgive other people. Oh my gosh, so much easier. And thank God for my wife, because she loved me until I could do it myself, and the
So
rooms of
true.
AA. Mm, and I'm still learning, you know?
That's the beauty of it, though. It's this long, it's the progress, not perfection part. I swear that's my other one. I'm full of tattoos all over. I got to get progress, progress, not perfection,
Yeah.
put somewhere because that's definitely the one that hooks me. And the beauty of it is it's a spiritual maintenance program.
Mhm,
I get to run through this and fine tune myself, like
mhm.
getting an oil change. And I do, like right now with my sponsor, we decided to pick up in January and do a step a month. I'm 10
Yeah.
years. I still step.
Mhm.
We're gonna it's month 4 today. Guess what I'm doing? I'm doing step 4 this month
Yeah.
to clean up any cobwebs that have shown up
Yeah.
over the last year.
Mhm.
Um, so it's not a one and done thing.
No.
And even amongst this COVID, I love our recovery community. Watching what happens when we know
Oh,
our people are in trouble and may not get what they need, watching recovery meetings show up online. Who
mhm.
cares if 2 people's in them? Been beautiful to watch. It's been
It is.
beautiful to watch.
And our recovery community is really coming together during this part. And AA and everything, it's still all going to be there when we come back.
Mhm.
I've been telling people that actually it isn't any different at all. The only difference is now we're talking online. Other
Right.
than that, you know, AA meetings are about fellowship. That's not the work. Sorry, guys.
Yeah,
But,
I was talking to someone this morning about she was a disconnection from a client was like, oh my gosh, why isn't this sticking? And I thought, the magic is in pen to paper. I mean, we could
yeah,
sit here and listen
yeah,
forever,
yep,
but maybe something happens when we do the actual work, pen to
hmm
paper.
yep,
That's the magic right there. And it has been it's been the magic in my life for 10 years. No matter what I'm doing,
yeah,
writing, getting out of progress and perfection in writing
yeah.
is such a freedom.
I started, and this was a skill that was given to me when I was about 15 years old, when I was in Mount Airy Psychiatric Center. This is back when they called them. Yeah. Anyway, but what she told me to do was just to start writing. It doesn't matter what I'm thinking or what's coming on the paper at all. And when I was done with it, take it, throw it in the chat, whatever I want to do with it. So number one, I have the act of physically writing something down and getting my emotions off my chest. That
Hmm.
fucking pricky did this and blah blah, do my whining. And then I can take it and let it go by throwing it away. And I haven't hurt anybody's
Well,
feelings.
and I tell clients the same thing.
Mhm.
Well, I tell the same thing. I tell clients, bring your 5-year-old self to that paper.
Yeah.
No one's asking for you to be mature. Just
Mhm.
write. I don't even care what it sounds like. Nobody has to look at it.
Yeah.
You're right. We can burn it. If it's something that has to be delivered to somebody, maybe you need somebody to help you filter that out first,
Sure.
right? You don't want to
Yeah. Oh
hand off your 15-year-old self,
yeah.
but
Hmm.
it's okay to bring your 5-year-old self to the paper and
Yeah.
just let go.
I had to, for my ninth step, I had to write a letter to my biological father, and I had never met the man. never talked to him. The only thing I knew is that he was remarried, lived in Idaho. So I sat down with my sponsor to write the letter, and we had to do it 2-3 times,
Right.
because it was not my job to interfere with his life, no matter what the fuck he had done. It didn't matter. I don't get to come in and stir the crap up. So, you know, it's good. And I kind of bring that up because I heard somebody say earlier, well, I do my 9th step. If they have a problem with it, then it's their problem. I'm like, no. So please don't do your 9th step that way. But, you know,
Yeah.
as we get into recovery, we do these steps every day. God gives me some kind of opportunity to work them, and every day. And ever since this started, I've been getting busier and busier and busier because, I run a business, an online business doing this. So,
Right.
uh,
That's like me. I tell everybody, I'm like, well, and the hard part too is, Dion, is that people are the hardest part is, I feel like, I watched everybody flock to the liquor stores, right? So I watched everybody go to liquor stores when they were scared in Denver they were going to close. And, some people have a problem. Some people are just normal people freaking out
yeah.
about the liquor stores closing. But from my view, I thought, well, there's either a lot of people who are about to find out if they have a problem, if they don't know, because they're going to have a lot of time on their hands.
Yep.
And we are seeing relapses increase. My
Yeah.
sponsor's got she had 3 other people, a couple other sponsees that aren't, that relapse. So that's happening right now, because it's not just about it's people are losing their jobs. People aren't, are ill. So I think we are needed. It is definitely a need. And I have seen my business increase. I agree.
Yeah. And, be easy to turn around and say, hey, well, that means that they didn't really want it, or but we just talked about the spiritual tools. And if these people don't have the tools that they need, then they're never going to, then even if they do make it, they're going to be white knuckling it. And that is that could be just as bad emotionally.
Oh, yeah. I was afraid. Oh, definitely. I was afraid, honestly, like when my husband got sober, I was afraid that that's what I was going to have, because and recovery looks different for everybody. I'm a 12-stepper, do or die. Like, I step till I die. But my husband is not that story. He is one, they talk in the big book about the man who gets like the miracle, and like God comes down, the shining thing, and like, whoop, he's like, yeah, my husband got that. Crazy to see. But what I tell people is I'd have died first before that ever happened to me.
Yeah.
And 2, like, I'd have died first. I wanted that thing so bad, but that's not how it happened. But everybody does recovery their own. You've got to figure it out, and you've got to figure out the spiritual tools that work best for you. Fellowship, however that looks like, you've got to figure out. And we talked about at the beginning, you said, I don't like that word structure, and I don't think I like it too much either, but that's why I like that word rhythm. I think people's rhythms are off. If you had a rhythm and that rhythm comes off, is why people are struggling with the relapse. And, I don't know what people do, because I know what I do when I'm struggling. I know the same things. I stick to a certain amount of tools, and I don't vary from them. I just literally don't. And I go back to what I know every time.
Yeah. Where before, what we used to know was picking up the bottle or the drug. But now now my first reaction, if I have thought of drinking, usually it doesn't even really last. I just continue on with my day because I'm probably doing something. But I wanted to bring up that, God doesn't give me any burning bushes, because I would grab a bucket of water and just put it out. So he doesn't give those to me.
No, and we have to work. We're the light workers, so we're the ones who are out here. And so if we don't work all the way through all the steps, how do we help be guides to other people who need to walk the journey if we just get to skip to zero, skip to home without?
Yeah. Well, then, and you're not going to do them much good. And that's going to be figured out sooner or later, because, your success rate's going to tank. But I'm an absolute believer in, you cannot give something to somebody you don't have. And I think that goes for anything. If I want to love my wife the way that I want to, I have to learn how to love myself first. if I want to do certain things for certain people, I have to get there first before I can do it. You know?
Well, we all know people. I mean, everyday people. We know people who, and you sit and you think, gosh, they talk a lot,
Hmm.
but and they talk a lot. But you know this. The difference is because their actions don't match their mouth.
Yeah.
That's the problem, right?
Mhm.
And that's in every human pattern. We don't like
Mhm.
that the human says something, but their actions don't line up.
Yeah.
And anymore in my recovery, I don't like to speak without my actions following my mouth. Like
That's
they need to sync,
yeah.
or I need to not do it or
Yeah.
say it.
Yep. Yeah. We need to walk our walk. And that's important. I mean, for what we do and the people that we work with, our integrity is extremely important. And because
Yeah.
if we're helping somebody, then we have to have that integrity. Well, the only way to build it in integrity is action. It's the only way to do it. It's the only
And
way.
I tell people, what can I do? I'm going to sell people and tell them how great great
Yeah.
doing, or that never worked in the past. I used to tell people, I'm like, are you selling me a used car?
Yeah.
Because are you trying to convince me of this or you of this? Because
Exactly.
I'm not buying it, but
Hmm.
you are really trying to sell it. And I relate to it. I don't say that to call people out. I say because I used to be someone who would try to tell people who I was
Yeah.
instead of showing up that way.
Yeah.
And there's a difference.
There is a big deal. And I think when you talk to people about that you need to come up with the answer too. You don't just say, "Oh, you're filling me full of you're full of bull crap," and that's it. No. Hey, I went through this too. Don't think I wasn't a compulsive liar. I mean, we just talked about this in the meeting.
Yeah.
Honesty. I mean, the first honest thing I ever said was, "I need help." But it was 6 months before another honest word came out of my mouth. It was a
Oh,
long time.
I used to lie about things I didn't even lying was so natural. I lied about things even when I got sober. It took me like a year
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
consciously going, and I would lie about shit I didn't even have to, like,
Yeah.
I don't know, over explain something that nobody gave a shit about.
Yeah.
Or I would talk about, like, a big long story for why I was 5 minutes late.
Uh,
Or I always lied. And then I made a year of like being as honest as I possibly could, but it came
yeah.
with a lot of effort.
It did. Well, lying is a habit, just like anything else, and I
Yep.
did the same thing. In fact, um, I used to tell people that I was related to Donnie and Marie Osmond, and I'm not. Yeah, no,
It's so true.
it's funny. And people are like,
Well,
well,
and I tell people it's like the fish story, right? Like, oh, I caught a fish, and you literally caught a minnow, and you're like, it's a fucking whale, man. I
yeah, look at
I
this
was off the
thing.
deep seas of it, No, you weren't, dude. You were in a pond, and it was a freaking minnow.
That's
But we can't. We're so afraid that nobody will like us if we just caught the minnow.
mm-hmm.
We need to have caught a whale
Yeah,
every time, all the
yeah.
time.
I think it comes down to the old look what I can do, mom, look what I can do, and they jump up in the air. We're the same way. And usually, and I was this person, this is how I know this, but I used to tell people
Me too.
all the time, I don't care what anybody fucking thinks of me. And that is just not true. That's not true. I care what my mom thinks of me. I care what my wife, my friends, my kids, I care what my kids think of me. So
Well, and I think of caring, like, I don't care. I tell people, because I work with teenagers in
sure,
recovery, which is different than a lot of recovery coaches. I work with young people, 14 to 24 in recovery,
sure.
and they are very self-imaged. And I tell people, I don't really care if you like my tattoos, because I've worked in the nonprofit world where can be very judgy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I don't care if you like my tattoos. But what I do care that you see is that I'm honest. It's
Mm-hmm.
my values. I don't care if you like the way I parent, if you like my tattoos, if
Yep.
if I dropped and said fuck and I wasn't supposed to, those kind of things. But I do care if you see someone who is kind, who is honest, who has
Yeah,
integrity, and those things you can't argue, right? Like
exactly.
that's your spine. That's what you're
Hmm.
rooted in. So, and the other thing is whose opinion counts. I mean, I got a nasty gram on social media the other day, a week ago, that, I mean, Dion, it's pretty bad. This person
Hmm.
came at me pretty heavy,
Wow.
but I've only met that person one time ever in my life. And
Hmm.
so her of me means nothing. I could,
Yeah.
it, you know, it's, I think of it like a stage, right? If I'm on the stage of life, me and God sit up on this stage, and
Mhm.
only certain people get VIP or front row or second row seats.
Oh,
The
that's a
rest
great way
of
to put
them sit way off in the bleachers. And this
it.
woman probably has a rock pile seat. And she's trying to throw something at me from way far away.
Uh-huh.
It can't hit me from that far. I'm on the stage. She can't get me.
Yeah.
And it makes it very easy. Your mom probably sits in your first, second, or third row,
That's
right?
right.
So
Yeah.
that's why her opinion matters.
Yeah. That's a great way to put it. Where I mean, what people, I think integrity is probably what comes with it, but anything that has to do with pride or ego, no. It's just like this show. I don't promote it. It's people are gonna listen to this because of attraction, not promotion. And I don't promote it. I don't spend money on it. I don't, I do it for the
You
love of.
just gave me an aha, actually. Can I tell you about it really quick?
Yeah, you go ahead.
Okay. So I have struggled in my business with the advertising part, and I think you just nailed it on the head as to why. It's because I really don't want to go sell me. I feel
Yeah,
like it seems so awkward,
it is.
and especially in the coaching world, because a lot of coaches are about like, look, me, I'm this. I can't fucking do it.
Yeah. Uh-uh.
I really struggle with that, Dion. You just gave me a lot of grace because I don't know how to do it either. I feel like all my clients come to me because someone's told them or met
Referral.
me or yeah.
Yeah, I don't go out and promote. I'm not fucking Russell Brand here, hack who talks out of his freaking head. Um,
Right?
but I do think, I think, there's some things to that, but that's not the route that I want to go. And I've always struggled with that. So I just don't, I figure, I'm just not going to do it. And you know what? God's taking care of it just fine. I haven't had to
Right.
do anything. I feel like when I try and force things like that, that's when it starts to get out of control. And then I
Amen. I swear,
and
anytime I forced anything.
yeah, and I'll just screw it up, and they'll be harder for that person and for me. Now we're all leaving with a bad feeling in our gut, and I can't do that. God gets
No.
upset with me when I do that to people.
Yeah, anything, even, I tell people I've been sober for a long time, but I can do a lot of things like an addict, right? I can, before I bought my home that I have now, I tried to buy a home like an addict. There was this house and I wanted it really bad. And the real estate agent says, Raquel, that house is a bad deal. And I wanted to be like, I did tell her, I was like, oh, you don't even know who I am. I am the one that is going to make this happen. This didn't happen. She was right. Every time I try to force an issue, and the second I let go and said, okay, fine, I will not try to control this, boom, this house that I live in right now showed up on on Facebook.
Yeah.
The moment literally within 30 seconds of me getting on Facebook and saying, I think I'm done buying this house, I'm letting it go, God, a friend of mine got on and said, oh, you're not going to buy that house? How about mine? I have this house. Within 30 seconds, Dion. So every time I try to control something,
Well,
it backfires.
it does. We can plan the plan, but we can't plan the results. And I don't even want to. Because the results are much better than I even anticipate anyway.
I was just going to say, I promise listeners, I promise my life is 1,000 times better than anything I could have ever planned. Ever. I couldn't have dreamed the life I have right now in a million years. Letting go and letting God allows me a life beyond my dreams.
Exactly.
They become his dreams and not mine, which is much better than anything I would have tried to do for myself. And if I look back, all the things I really, came at with some sort of fervor and effort fizzled.
Yeah. I usually, we have grandiose ideas, especially when we first come into the program. Well, what about this? We could make this huge, not huge. It's like, calm down. AA's been doing this since 1932. We're good, and until they settle in and realize, or figure out what serenity is. And I think what we're talking about right now is we invariably find that God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves, or coming across problems that we can intuitively handle. That's great
Right.
stuff.
Right. Yeah, I can handle situations which used to baffle me.
Yeah. Or I could handle situations which I used to baffle, which I was probably real good at. All right. Well, thank you for coming on. Is there any words of wisdom that you'd like to part with us?
You know, I don't really have much words of wisdom. My thing is find your rhythm. I think that's kind of been the essence of me, especially since the
That's
COVID
awesome.
thing, is finding some sort of rhythm for yourself. It's worked in my home. And then keep recovery first. And the other thing is reach out. I mean,
Yeah.
there's so much opportunity right now to
Hmm.
get assistance and help. The world is, I think the heart of humanity is open right now.
Yeah.
And so it's an okay taking. It's okay for you humans to take from
Hmm.
open hearts. And
Yeah.
right now, those of us who do healing work in the community are open, and not just in recovery. I see therapists, I
Yeah.
see yoga people, there's free yoga stuff. I mean, anything you want to fill your cup right now, you have an advantage to take it, because the world is open to their hearts right now.
Hmm.
Seminars, you name it, right now is a time to be okay with receiving what's been offered to you.
Fantastic. Well, thank you again for coming on today
I
and
loved it,
doing this with
Dion.
me. This was enjoyable. I really enjoyed this. We'll have to sit down with some topics and stuff at some point and cover some things. That'd be a
Yeah,
lot of
let's do that.
fun. Some
Let's do that.
thank you everybody for coming on and listening. This has been uh, Raw Recovery with Dion Miller, trudging together. And stay tuned for some more great stories like Raquel's. In the meantime, I love you all. Peace out and have a day.